What is going on, Movie Meals? Movie Meals, we're going to get right into it. So thank you to the Movie Meal patrons, Kimberly and Karen. Go get some merch. I'll link down in the description. All great stuff. Um, we've already put up a Batman non-spoiler review on the channel, but this is all spoilers. We are going to spoil everything in this movie. I'm saying it now in the first 30 seconds, so don't skip ahead and they get mad why it was spoiled. This is all spoiler review. There's no direction. There's no positives, no negatives. We're just going to chat about what we loved. And Kyle, why don't you take it away? Spoil up the Batman and how much you love this movie.
Batman dies. Gotcha. Okay, now the
When he fell into the water for a second, we all thought he might. We all thought it. Will he go? Anyway,
just a little bit. No, God, this movie's great. Like, it got me right from the get-go because it just had this great establishing of the city of Gotham, of just being grimy and dirty, full of crime and deceit, with like this gothic aesthetic that like combines with it, that I just thought was so brilliantly done. But it just does a great job by not only setting up the Riddler as like the big overarching villain of this story, because later on he just has this presence uh of just like always being a step or two ahead of Batman, Commissioner Gordon. But the opening I'm thinking of in particular is the narrative that Batman is having about like what his duties are like throughout the first 2 years. And we just see him step out of the shadows of the subway train as he's beating up like this group of gangsters trying to harm like this one guy. And it's just great. Like, it establishes like the threat that's going to be in this movie, and it establishes who this Batman is and what his he feels like his responsibilities are like, that he has to be like this vengeful being, this entity. And later on throughout the movie, we see him change his ways more so into becoming like a hero and a beacon of hope, rather than the vengeful aspect of it in the beginning. Like, I don't know about you, but just right from the get-go, with between like the score, the way the film was shot, the introduction to Batman and Riddler, it really was just such an awesome establishing point for me that just sucked me in throughout the whole movie. Yeah, and Paul Dano, Robert Pattinson, like both of them playing off of each other, despite not really being in person. They're only in person once they finally capture him and put him in Arkham, even though basically like the Riddler kind of wanted that point and he wanted to be captured anyway. But it still was just this great dynamic, even though they weren't really face to face for a whole lot of the time. But what did you think? Did you think the same thing?
yeah, I love this movie. I think from the very opening shot, I mean, when Ave Maria starts playing, which any movie that has Ave Maria is an instant incredible film. Um, it really, what I love so much about the movie is this idea that this is a Batman that is so into himself. To me, he's the most realistic Batman we have had. He's more realistic, and nothing seemed outlandish to me. Everything he
Mhm.
did, I believed a human with that much money could make happen. Like Elon Musk at any time could make all this happen and make this suit happen and make everything happen the way it did. And
Yeah, it's
I
interesting to me. Sorry, it's
go
interesting
for
to
it.
me that um, it didn't feel like he used his money to make his gadgets or his car or his suit. Like, it, as compared to like the Dark Knight trilogy, you can tell like, and obviously he had
Well, they have
Lucius
whole
Fox to
scenes
help him,
about
but
it.
yeah, he was using his money to be able to make what he became known as Batman. But here it seems like this version of Bruce Wayne wants to be so disconnected from his family and his riches that he's willing to start from like really ground zero into becoming like this force of vengeance that's Batman. But I'm glad that you made that point out, and please continue.
Well, I just, I, let's actually, we'll come back to this through this story, but you bring up the Dark
Okay.
Knight. Let's hit up the big thing everybody's wondering right now. And it is this idea that we have to have a movie that's better than the Dark Knight. And funny enough, I read an article that one of the producers of this movie, the Batman, apparently had like a lunch or something with Christopher Nolan and said to him, our goal is to beat you. Our goal is to
Hmm.
be better than the Dark Knight. And that's a great goal. And you should have that goal. And I personally think this is in the same class as The Dark Knight. I've seen a lot of people really start to actually trash a bit on The Dark Knight because they love this one more, or they're trashing on this. And here, let's talk about this real quick because I think it'll really help us flesh out what we did love about the movie and hit a lot of big points. But so here are the biggest complaints I've seen about this movie. that it is a lot of plot with no story, right? So we're a lot of the where and when, but we're not getting a lot of the why. I completely disagree with that. I think there is a lot of story in this movie, and
Yeah.
along with that, people think that there's not enough Bruce Wayne. Where's my billionaire? And I think that a Batman that is so entrenched in the darkness of who this brooding character is, he's not going to care about being Bruce Wayne. He's different than this Christian Bale one. When Alfred says you need to keep up appearances, he doesn't want to. He doesn't think that's how this will help. I love that he is a completely nocturnal animal, that he has to develop contact lenses that record the nights because he can't even remember what happened the night before. And he keeps diaries. I love all that. I think that is a very interesting and smart and new take on Batman and Bruce Wayne. What do you think about those points before I keep going?
No, I completely agree. I didn't mind that we didn't get a whole lot of Bruce Wayne because the story from the get-go, and it's a very big plot point as well in this movie, is that Bruce is trying to remove himself from the idea of Bruce Wayne because he wants to focus so much on being Batman in order to redeem himself for not being able to do anything to help stop the murder of his parents. But as the story goes on, as he's trying to solve this mystery about the Riddler and what his goals are and who his next victims are going to be, he starts to uncover the dirty laundry behind his parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne, and it really takes him for a spiral in a bit because it feels like at first they're just as corrupt as the next city government official or the next cop that's standing right next to him. But as it goes on, he learns that they had dirty laundry, but they did it because of mistakes that they made, not because that they were corrupted themselves. And I think because of that, it's going to help him not only become the hero that he's meant to be as Batman later on in future movies, but it's also going to cause us to see him reinvent himself as Bruce Wayne the person. Maybe not so much as the playboy philanthropist version of Bruce Wayne, but maybe just as someone who's trying to give back to Gotham, trying to redeem his family name, because his family name was exposed because of the Riddler, because the Riddler was thinking that Bruce Wayne was one of the causes of all the madness and all the dirty laundry that was happening throughout Gotham City and its officials. So it's weird to me that that's a complaint because it kind of makes me feel like they're not really paying attention to the movie because this movie doesn't exactly tell you what's going on. Like you really have to pay attention and follow on to the clues that are going on as Batman and Commissioner Gordon are trying to solve things, and it allows the story to be able to let you know how characters are feeling or thinking through emotion and not so much with exposition dumps. And I appreciate that from this, that stories can be told that way. Blockbuster stories can be told that way. And not all of them need to necessarily, but I just am appreciative of stuff like this and Dune, where they're allowing blockbusters to give audiences more credit and to follow along stories in that way. So I disagree with that notion as well, but I really did like how Bruce Wayne and the Wayne family was utilized in this because it added on to all of the problems that were going on within Gotham. What else do you think?
Yeah, I agree so much. This is the first time I saw the movie, it's a Batman. I was like, he's really brooding. He's moving real slow. Like and then you realize, oh, he's moving slow as Batman because he's got this contact lens in and he needs to get IDs on people. He needs to get everything recorded so he can go back and look at it again. And not only that,
it looks intimidating too. Yeah.
He does look intimidating. And then I think back to Batman Begins and how he trains as a ninja. And then I start thinking to myself, martial artists and these old kind of fighting styles, it's through patience. And him being calm and cool and collected shows his patience. He's waiting. He waits for somebody to fight. And he does strike first at times, but it's always calculating until the end. And he rushes in to save everybody with the flood because the Riddler really is beating him. And then he starts to lose because he's going so fast trying to save everybody too quick. And I mean, the beginning of this movie says, I'm not Batman. He doesn't say I'm Batman in the movie, which every other movie does. He says, I'm vengeance. He's not
People call
Batman.
him vengeance.
They
Yeah.
do. And that's what he's going around saying to people. We're used to Christian Bale and Batman Begins, with the I'm Batman. And they say it in other movies as well. And
Michael
he doesn't
Keaton.
do
Yeah.
that. And I think that's such a smart move by Matt Reeves of him being like, look, this is not Batman yet. The story ends with him becoming Batman. He learns that his vengeance, his anger is not enough. He didn't do what Christian Bale did. He didn't travel the world for your first hour of your movie or your first 45 minutes of your movie learning the criminal mind. He goes and beats the living crap out of people. And the opening scene is so great where all the criminals are like, look, I have become like the signal's a warning. It's not letting
Mhm.
criminals know that I'm out. I mean, it's letting them know that at any second, I'm going to beat the living crap out of them to the point where civilians he's saving are afraid of him. He had the
Mhm.
wrong impact on this society and this city, and I love it. I think it's such an interesting take. I think it is very true to some of the darker version of the comics and very true to some of the video games we've gotten. And I love it so much. Some of the scenes in the Nolan trilogy, where it's him flaunting his money, I think are funny, but I don't want him to do that. I didn't want a Bruce Wayne going around buying hotels. I wanted somebody different. I wanted a little bit of a different style Bruce Wayne. And through the movie, Alfred says, you've got to keep up appearances. You're a Wayne. You have to
Mhm.
show everybody. The new mayor is like, look, dude, you're not doing anything for the city and you could be. And he learns that at the end. He learns that this is what I need to be. I need to be more of my Bruce Wayne. I need to be more of a hero than vengeance.
Speaking of Alfred, if you don't mind me adding, I liked Andy Serkis
Incredible. He was great.
as Alfred. I wish there was more scenes with those two, but I think they have enough as a starting point and to really establish their relationship very well. Because it's an Alfred that I always like, where Alfred is on board, but he makes sure to keep Bruce Wayne in check rather than keep Batman in check. It feels like they weren't able to utilize Andy Serkis that much because if I'm just guessing here, but I bet that Venom was being made around the same time as Batman was. So I wonder if, since Andy Serkis was directing that maybe he just wasn't able to be in as many scenes, and maybe that'll change down the road, and we'll get more
I
out of
actually
those two.
disagree with
But
you here.
oh really? I mean, it's just a guess to me. But for enough of what they had, I just wish they could have had more. But he was still
For
utilized well.
for what, just watching Batman Begins and The Dark Knight again, you
Mhm.
know, Michael Caine's not in the movie, I don't think, any much more than Andy Serkis in this one. I think he probably
Okay.
has a bit more, but I don't think it's a lot. Here's the big difference. Michael Keaton or Michael Caine in pretty much every scene has a great one-liner. He has a good joke. He has a
Yes.
big moment. Andy Serkis didn't
Mhm.
have that. He shows up and tells the truth to
Mhm.
Bruce, but he doesn't have this insane moment. I mean, he's in a good amount of scenes. He's in the Batcave twice. We see him in there. He's up having lunch. We get the scene of him getting blown up, the hospital scene, which I think is great with a reveal of the parents' death. We know how Bruce Wayne parents died. We don't need to
Yeah.
see it again. Make it different. So to me, it really worked.
Yeah.
It wasn't a quippy, it wasn't the as much as I love these lines with Michael Caine and everything, we got a different Alfred, and I
Mhm.
appreciated that. And we got him being smart and showing off how he can help with the cipher and things like that. So I really loved him. You might be right. There might have been a scene or two because he was pretty busy and filming at the same time. People forget this movie was supposed to come out 2 years ago. Like this movie,
Yeah.
which I don't know why they're not already filming the sequel. Like, what are we doing? Like, seriously, what are we
Yeah.
doing? Matt
Let's gotta
Reeves,
move
Warner
on.
Brothers. Also, Warner Brothers, if you're watching, which you are, there is no reason you allow everything in that movie and then will not let the Penguin have a cigar. It makes zero sense. The Penguin was not a
He's
cool character in the sense that I wanted to be like him. Kids would not have thought that. Kids are there for Batman. Whatever producer thought that was an idiot. They let him do everything he wanted except let the Penguin have a cigar, and it makes zero sense.
the penguin has strippers and is letting
Yeah.
girls be having sex with the guys, but cigars, God forbid. But yeah, I
He
mean, it
literally
doesn't make or
hands
break or nothing, but it's just like, really, that's where you draw the line, like in this dark, gritty movie that's like the Zodiac Killer and Seven, like really, that's
we have
all
old
right,
Batman
whatever.
movies. Doesn't Joe Pesci, it wasn't it Joe Pesci who played the Penguin?
No,
Who was it?
you thinking of Danny DeVito? Or are you thinking
I
of
am. Yeah,
Batman
yeah,
Returns? Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't he have a
Okay.
cigar?
Yeah.
So we can do it back in the 80s and 90s. We can't
Yeah.
do it today in 2022. Ridiculous.
But that movie was so dark that Warner Bros. Pivoted and got us Batman
It's true.
Forever. So
It's true. Warner
let's
Brothers,
just
you're
learn
too
from our mistakes.
reactionary. Um,
Yeah.
to me, one of the best things about this movie is how it's written and how the stories weave together. It doesn't feel, and to be honest, there are times other Batman movies have felt this way where it's okay, we're this plot, now we're this plot, now we're this plot, now we're this plot. And they're two separate things going on. This movie's one story, all weaved together. Dark Knight is very similar, and I think it works super well. To be honest, the biggest thing I'm hearing right now is everybody's like, this is the better Batman movie. This is the best Batman movie, but the Dark Knight is the best overall superhero movie ever. Like, that's what it is. And it's like, everybody just take a beat. The Dark Knight is one of the best superhero movies ever because it has arguably the best performance in a movie ever. That is a true fact statement. I just watched A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger the other day. And I was sitting there, this is 3 days after I watched The Dark Knight, and I'm sitting there going, how on earth is this the same actor? Like, I get it, but I don't understand how he gave that good of a performance. And there's only a handful of performances that truly make you do that. Like, Robert Downey Jr. is great as Iron Man. He gives an incredible performance, but it wasn't this massive branch. I see him in other movies and I go, that's a little Robert, that's a little Tony Stark here. Like, but Heath Ledger, his performance was so good, it can never be replicated. Nobody else could have done it. That's how good it is. It's up there with some of Meryl Streep and Daniel Day-Lewis's best performances ever. Like, that's how good it was. This movie has incredible performances, and it's a great movie. And we need to stop with this, which one's better, which one's not. I think the producer saying we want to beat you is a great thing to do. But as a fan, I have a tier. This is why I like the tier system even more. Both these movies, to me, are great, perfect superhero movies that I think are all-time greats. If you put them on a bracket, it would depend on how I'm feeling that day. Which one have I watched more recently? Because those are the few nitpick factors that will make me pick one or the other. This is an incredible detective, different version of Batman that is just awesome. I don't know. Where are you at with this whole ridiculous nerd crazy thing? Because we have to have one better than the other. We can't just have two good things,
Oh, I just don't care what anyone thinks. Like, if they want this movie to be better, that's totally fine. It's all opinions and it's subjective. But for me, like, I don't really have. I guess, like, I still would think like The Dark Knight is the best movie of like a Batman movie. But I get where people are coming from. Like, this movie's freaking awesome. Like, our spoiler review is just only about positive things because there's not really many bad things to say about it. So. I just don't care. Like, people it's subjective. It doesn't matter.
It's true. Back to the Batman here. Other things I just love, the action sequences. Like that car chase. I know Matt Reeves has been huge about how it's all practical. Looks incredible. And some of the shots are straight out of the movie Seven and Zodiac, which I know was an inspiration for Matt Reeves. And this Seven to me is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I have not been able to rewatch it because of the Kevin Spacey thing. I loved Kevin Spacey. I thought he was arguably a top 3 actor of all time, and I absolutely hate his guts. He's a despicable human, and I've had a hard time watching his movies since. But Seven, like, this is paying homage to that, and in such a beautiful way. And I love when movies can do that, when not only you can make your own thing, but then you pay a little homage to what came before, what inspired you to make this version. And Kyle, can we just have a sequel? I don't even know what's going on anymore. I just want a sequel right now. Matt Reeves, I'll pay you. I have no money, but I will pay you to make the sequel.
I have to agree with you. Like, he really does do great homages to those movies, but I think he also does great homages to what makes the best of the best Batman stories work so well. It's because these detective type stories are able to interweave all of these different characters, like a Penguin or a Falcone, the crime lord in this movie, Catwoman, Riddler. They're not necessarily like needing to be at the forefront unless they really need to be at the forefront at certain times for the story to make sense. And within those moments, those actors do fantastic. I mean, John Turturro is great. Like, despite him not being like, a superpower being or anything like that, he's just a crime boss, but he really makes his impact hit when it needs to. Thing with Colin Farrell's Penguin. He's awesome. He was awesome in the car chase scene. He was awesome at the beginning of the movie, the end of the movie. Like, it's no wonder that they want to make a show with this guy, because Colin Farrell's a terrific actor, and he just was on board with making this like an awesome Penguin, like one of the best versions of Penguin possibly that we've had. I don't know if we need to go into that territory or not, but it just was really stood out.
He's the best live action Penguin we've ever gotten. He is. He's great.
There could be Danny
also
fans.
To me, this is the best version of Catwoman. I love Dan Hathaway, and I liked how Christopher Nolan made her
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Unique. Michelle.
That one's pretty good too.
Michelle Pfeiffer is also great, and sorry, Halle Berry. Love you. Didn't love the movie. But to me, like, I love that Anne Hathaway's cat ears were always like a cool version of these night vision goggles. And I love the simplicity of this being such a basic mask. But to me, Zoe Kravitz just knocked it out of the park. She was great. The Penguin was great. All of the villains were great. I'm going to be completely honest with you. This Riddler, to me, is the second best villain in any Batman movie we've ever gotten, and it's only because Heath Ledger was that freaking good. This is so good. If Heath is a 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, this is a 9.8 out of 10. Like, it is that good. And if you truly did not think Paul Dano was that good, or you had no idea, you have to go watch Prisoners. He's so good in that movie. It's also a 10 out of 10 movie for me. I just love Prisoners so much.
Zoe Kravitz really captured what I love about a particular version of Catwoman. It's this version where she really toes the line between good and bad. Like, she's not necessarily a bad person, but she just wants to steal, the money or jewels for just the thrill of it. But she also has this other side of her to where she respects Batman and his goals and his desire to make Gotham a good place. And that relationship between Batman and Catwoman, where it's, it is sexual, but it's also a respect between partners, is some of the best stuff that I think between those two characters. And I think it's just done so well between Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz. They were able to capture what I've read from those characters of the comics and was able to place into this movie so well. And Paul Dano, he really did a good job. He did a really great job as the Riddler of being this really calculative mastermind of insanity, and was always a step or two ahead. Whether the clues and the riddles he was giving to Commissioner Gordon and Batman were just so complicated that they really had to think hard, or they were just so simple and right in front of their face because they were thinking too hard. Like, it was just some really clever stuff that made this mystery just so good and so interesting, despite its long 3-hour run time. But Paul Dano also was just so menacing as the character Riddler that I think he's able to make Riddler cool again. Like, I don't think many audiences really know about Riddler in the comics. They just really know about him in the animated series or Batman Forever, which is fair, but I think it's going to change. Like, I think people are like, oh yeah, like, these dopey characters can be cool if done right. So those two performances really stood out to me too.
One of the scenes I love, and I want to bring this up, so when the first trailer came out, or one of the first trailers, and the scene of looks like Batman's going to talk to the Riddler in the thing, and he yells, he's hitting the glass and yelling. I remember when the trailer came out, I was like, what did he say? It was so quick, I couldn't understand. And we had dozens of comments. I mean, just a ton of comments that were like, he's saying, where's the gun? Where's the gun? And he does not say, where's the gun? He says, what have you done? And the second I saw that scene, I was like, wow, I got roasted. And everybody didn't even get it right. But that
we have the proof
is so good. They truly convince you that the Riddler is about to expose who Bruce Wayne is. And when he does his little Bruce Wayne and he's like doing his thing, you're sitting there in fear, and he's hiding, and he's nervous. You can tell on the look on his face and in his eyes how nervous he is. And then when he realizes that he didn't figure it out, I mean, he's sitting there yelling at him that he gave him too much credit for not being smart enough, and he couldn't even figure that out, that this is why he didn't kill Bruce Wayne, because Bruce is actually Batman. And that whole conversation is just it's one of my favorite scenes.
No, I completely agree with you. Like not only is just such a nerve-wracking moment, but it's one that takes me by surprise because when they were starting to plant these seeds of like, ooh, Riddler knows who Bruce Wayne is, I was thinking, really, we're going to include this as well? I wonder how this is going to work. And then immediately when the Arkham scene happened, I'm like, all right, this is fantastic. Like, this is just
Yes.
such great stuff. It shows like just both of those characters are as smart as they are, but also made me appreciate Robert Pattinson's performance even more so because, like you were saying, you saw the fear in his eyes. And there was other times throughout this movie where I was seeing, despite him being, what's the word? I guess in his vengeful, fear-mongering state, like you could still see that glint of fear that he was having. Of like,
Yep.
I'm a little unsure of what's about to happen next, but I kind of have to go in anyway. And it just made me appreciative because it made the character even more human, despite us seeing him kind of being like this very mopey or this very I don't know how else to describe it really, but just as this really dour version of Bruce Wayne and Batman that doesn't seem like it has much else of a character to it, but that changes completely once you really pay attention to the acting that's going on from him.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Riddler and the Joker. So it feels, you heard me, the Joker is in this movie, and it feels like it was supposed to be, it feels like it was an after credit scene. And them putting it in the movie, I actually think is very smart. We're not going to be Marvel here. We're going to tease it right now and let you know. And then we're still going to have a scene after that is even more impactful to our main character. And I love it. I think the actor they have, who, do you know his name? I'm forgetting his name.
I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce it right now. It's Barry Keoghan, I think, or Keoghan. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it, but people probably know him best from Eternals. He plays one of them who does like the mind controlling stuff. I'm spacing on who that character's name is.
And I thought he was good in Eternals. He's in Dunkirk. He doesn't have a major role. He's a pretty good actor, but I like that it's very Heath Ledger hire. It's like this is a hire where people are like, who, why? This guy won't do well. And then I loved his laugh. The second he said, in the first showing I saw, the second he says clown, he's talking about how a comeback story and being a clown. And the second he did that, the whole audience just in my theater goes, like they all figured out who he was. You get a quick little kind of look at him where it looks like he's got a ton of scars, especially for where the smile is. And from what I've heard from Matt Reeves is that this Batman has already faced the Joker. He put him in Arkham, but he's not a full-fledged true Joker yet. He's not the true Joker. He is just starting out. He's encountered him, but he wasn't, crazy. And one of the lines I love in Captain America Civil War is when Vision says, the more heroes we get, the more catastrophe that happens. When it's how science works, it's how nature works. It's an equivalent exchange here. It's, if we're going to get more powerful as heroes, there's going to be more powerful villains that arise. And I've always thought that's one of the best lines, because I think when superhero movies do that well, it shows. Because in this movie, we're fighting crime bosses. We're fighting the Riddler, who's just a normal murderer. Like he's smart, but he's not super smart. The Batman doesn't feel like he has super strength. Like there's none of this, that all this feels like this could really happen. And now that he's going from vengeance to hero, now everything's going to escalate. We're going to get a Joker who had an incredible laugh. His laugh, I thought, was one of the best, maybe the second, third best I've ever had. I mean, the top two laughs are Heath and Mark, and I think his laugh was just so good. It felt childish in a way, like it was high pitched, it was intense, it was crazy, and I really liked it. And if we're going to get a true Joker, a full-fledged Joker, then it's just going to get even more chaotic as he tries to become a hero, because the villains have to match him. He can't just be a vigilante who's basically a cop with a little bit of cool gear, which is kind of what he is. He now has to rise even higher than that, and the villains have to match him. And I'm just, whatever enemy we get, I'm here for it. Anything you want to add about the Joker here?
Well, it was only just a little bit of a snippet, hearing the voice, hearing the laugh, and I thought that it sounded pretty good too. And I'm really excited to see how this actor portrays him down the road. It's just right now we've been so in the moment of Joker between, all the questions of like, how is Jared Leto's Joker going to fit into all this? Hopefully he's gone, because I don't care anymore. And then Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, obviously, he just won an Oscar. It was a really big deal
He
of
was
a
great.
movie.
I don't want him with
Yeah,
Batman. Don't want him with
yeah,
Batman.
no,
I think
exactly.
his movie
I'm glad
needed to be alone.
yeah, I'm glad that they separate those two. I just would love to see other villains before I see a Joker again. I mean, I know that this movie isn't probably going to come out for like another 2 or 3 years, so maybe that opinion will
I
change.
told you that
And
yesterday.
and we still don't know like when this Joker's going to appear. It's possible he could be in like Batman 3, 4, 5, 6. I have no idea, but I guess it's good. It's a fine tease to me. It's just not one that I necessarily really needed, only because I've had so much Joker in such a short span of time that I would have been fine if we can move on to a sequel and just, do some other characters that we haven't seen before, or maybe returning characters of like, I don't know, Scarecrow or something, but just do it a bit differently. That would be fine with me too. But
That's funny because I would
just with
much rather have Joker than Scarecrow again.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't have to be Joker. I mean, I don't know, like a minor character like a Professor Pig, for example. Though it
No.
might go into like the same serial killer type territory as what we've had with the Riddler, but I don't know. It's just a fanboy thing that I wouldn't mind seeing. And maybe I just need more time before we see like what this Joker will become, and maybe I'll be more on board than I am right now. But for the little snippet, it did sound good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this guy can pull off with this character.
Matt Reeves in an interview said that they had filmed 2 scenes with the Joker and they cut one, and one of them was Batman and Joker either speaking or fighting or talking or something.
Yeah.
I wonder if that is something they're going to put in the DVD extras. I hope not, because I think we should hide that and, hide who he is. A lot of people are speculating maybe the next big villain will be another version of Bane, because people are saying that the serum he pulls out at the end is probably venom that he injects himself with, and that maybe that is something that Wayne Enterprises is working on for like the military. And then there's maybe a soldier, something goes rogue and Bane gets his hands on it or something. I think tackling a villain again, I think going to these older villains that we haven't seen in a long time, like the Riddler, we haven't seen since a really bad Batman movie.
Like 90s, yeah.
And I think, even a Mr. Freeze done the right way would be cool. But to me, I think the Joker and this Riddler teamed up, which is what it feels like after that scene, would be so cool for a next villain arc. Whether it's Bane, I think you should go with a big heavy hitter villain myself. I don't want to get some obscure villain. I think we stick to maybe a villain that has a little bit of recognition here. Or maybe bring in a Justice League level villain, only let Batman fight him. Let's see what happens. I think that would be cool. Get somebody different. But I loved this kind of style of the Joker, and I'd like to see what he can do. Because I like the casting a lot. I think when you get an actor that not a lot of people know, it's gonna give you really good results. And I just want to see it, guy. I just want to see it. I think the Riddler will return. I don't think that's a character that won't not be back. I think the whole point of Everybody Loves a Comeback Story is all these villains are going to be back. I mean, Penguin is now really truly rising to the comic book version of him. And we fought mob bosses. Like it's not like, also, I've seen a lot of people say this online of how glad they were that they called Carmine Falcone and not Falcone that they do in the Dark Knight movies. And I also appreciated that, because the Falcone was always kind of a bit like, whoa, what are we doing here? And then I'm pretty sure that's not his name. It's not his name. It's just Falcone. And
I've heard it both ways, so it's kind of like Raish versus Raj Al Ghul. Like, it doesn't bother me too much, but I get it.
I liked it. And, one of the things we talked about in The Dark Knight is Gotham. How was Gotham? Does Gotham never feels like a character? And it was something Matt Reeves wanted. And Gotham truly feels like a character in this movie. Why the fact that we're in Gotham matters a lot to the plot and to what's happening. And I really liked it and really appreciated that. What did you think?
No, I did too. I really thought that it emphasized the dismantling that the city has been going through with its crime, with its poverty, with what the people have to go through day in and day out, with all the horrible things that are going on. But it just, it has to be another day for them. Like, there's just no other way around it, because there's just so much deceit through all of the upper officials of the city. And Yeah, honestly, I was thinking through the movie, like I felt like it was done better than the movie Joker did. And the Joker's whole point was that the Joker was trying to cause an uprising of all these corrupt higher up
Yeah.
officials who are making the city what it was. And so I just appreciate that Matt Reeves was also a director who had an understanding of Gotham in that way. Uh, I do want to mention also, because I don't think we've given him enough love, Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon, because
Great. Hey, not the commissioner.
him
He's just Jeff Gordon. Jeff
he'll
Gordon.
be the
What's his first
he'll
name?
be the
Jim.
Jim.
Jim Gordon. Jeff Gordon's
He'll
our
be the
NASCAR
commissioner
buddy.
because the commissioner, his commissioner buddy, ate
Hey,
it in the beginning of the movie. So
didn't see him get the. There's a lot going on. We didn't have time for ceremonies. He's just Gordon. All right.
all right. But I thought this relationship between them was fantastic because it just worked so well with this detective angle of Batman and of Commissioner Gordon. Sorry, just Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Jim
of
Gordon.
Batman and Gordon that I've loved so much throughout the comics, and
Yeah.
they're just back and forth in their energy. You can tell, like, even though it's only been 2 years since Batman has been around, like they already have a bond and an understanding of what each other's goals are in order to make the city better. But they still are able to have conflict, but it's a conflict of respect between the two, and they still always find a way to work together when they really need to most. And Jeffrey Wright did a fantastic job. He worked very well off of Robert Pattinson, and I just cannot wait to see how it works because they literally were like a dynamic duo of sorts. They just were hand in hand with each other, and I just thought it was so much fun to watch them all the
I
time.
agree. I like that the bat signal's not at the top of the police station, that it's in this kind
Mm-hmm.
of warehouse or building that's not fully finished, and that's where they
Mm-hmm.
meet. And I loved their one-on-one talk and discussions and how much he supports him, like the scene where he gives him the key so he can escape. And one of the things too is the way they do use humor in this movie is very subtle, and it works because it's not
Yes.
necessarily meant to be funny. The characters aren't laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a really good moment. Like when he gets back and he's like, "You could have pulled that punch," and he's like, "I did." Like that's a
Yeah.
great way to do this humor. Also, like the penguin being tied up, they leave him and he waddles like a penguin out is so funny to me. Like that's a good use of humor in this movie, and it's done very well. There's not a lot of it, but I didn't want a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted something new, different, and dark.
Well, even a minute or two before that, Batman and Gordon are thinking that he's the rat. He's the one that
Yeah.
Riddler is after, or he thinks he's the mole of sorts. But as they're explaining, like the clue to Penguin, and they accidentally misread it as L rat whatever versus
Instead
law
of
rat
law.
whatever. Penguin's like, you guys are idiots. You not know Spanish. Like
He's like world's greatest detectives. Like it's
yes,
funny.
it's such a great and funny reaction that works well with the character, but also it just goes to show how much the Riddler is in the heads of Batman and Gordon because Riddler sometimes has clues to where it's just in your face, but they're just overthinking it so much because the clues previously were where you had to think the most. And also, like sometimes Riddlers are just like that. They're either hard or in front of your face. So it's just stuff like that. I'm just appreciative of not only the humor, but just it works. A situation works well, not just for one character, but for a bunch of characters that are involved
Yeah.
in particular moments. So, God, it's just so good, Alex.
It is. The last thing I want to touch on here, and then we should wrap up, is the duality
Okay.
between Bruce Wayne and our Riddler. Of the fact
Mhm.
that this movie opens with him writing, "I'm a nocturnal animal." He's got these journals. He has to push himself. He has to write these things down. And then later seeing the look on his face when there's hundreds of ledgers that are the exact same from a different person's point of view. When they talk about being an orphan and how lucky he was to have the privilege to be
Mhm.
as rich as he was, where he wasn't 30 kids to a room, where, what did he say? Like, you wake up screaming because a mouse is trying to chew your finger off. Like, he
Yeah.
didn't have that. And you see, once he realizes that he doesn't know that he's Bruce, but he's just kind of whining about Bruce, you see on
Mhm.
Batman's face how he is looking at this duality of what he would have become if he wasn't lucky. And that, to me, is the first realization of him figuring out that he needs to be more for this city.
Yeah.
That what he has done is not working, that he was put in a place of privilege and he can't he can't like he has not achieved it. He has to become different. And it is something I loved throughout the whole movie. I just the fact that they're playing off of each other, that these are the same people, just in a different situation, how they could have easily been one or the other. They could have been each other, is just something I really appreciated in the writing and the storytelling and how Matt Reeves did it, which is why I am on the camp that this movie has a lot of story to it. And it's not a lot of, I mean, it's not just plot. And I really, really appreciated it. What did you think of that?
No, you explained it so well that I don't know how else I can add on. Like, I completely agree with you. And I was very surprised that they went down with this duality of these two characters, and that it just worked out so smoothly and it made so much sense. Yeah, I mean, most of the time when it comes to like superhero movies, like they kind of try to do the duality thing, and eventually it's like you and me, we're the same. It's always kind of that line, and you're like,
Yeah.
I've seen this line, and you're not really explaining to me how they're that similar to begin
Yes.
with. Some do it well than others, but it just has been played out so much that it's like you're just saying the line to say the line, but you're not really showing me how this is possible. But here, this movie just does a really great job, and I just did not see it coming, but I appreciate what they did with it.
And we've seen different versions of it too. The Dark Knight is an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. It is two similar. Batman and Joker are similar, but they are very different. They are the opposites of each other and battling. Bane talks about how he and Batman were similar, but that he adopted the dark, where I was born in it, and had the difference in that. And I like that that these are two people in very similar situations, and they came out very similar and yet very different, and they're seeing the slight differences. You know, I asked all our friends if they watched Demon Slayer, and because Demon Slayer did something very similar in their last arc, which I just watched. So I had that kind of that mentality on the forefront of my mind, thinking how much I loved it in the show, and then now how much I love it in Batman, and how they did such a great job. And there's a lot to be said about characters like that. And you're right, a lot of movies say it, but they don't actually do it, or they don't even show it. And I like that this is, we're not only going to show you, we even kind of say it. He basically says, Bruce Wayne, he was up on the tower looking down on us. He was not one of us. He was not an orphan. And then you go back to the conversation with Alfred. You have just a few scenes earlier where he says, I didn't raise you. You were alone. I couldn't be a father. And him realize, and that scene where he says, I thought I had mastered all that. I thought I had mastered how to handle these feelings, and that I've realized that I am not alone, that I don't want to ever lose people I care about. And he starts to see it in Selena Kyle. He starts to see it in Alfred. Hopefully he sees it in the maid. I just I think it's when the maid showed up, Kyle leads over and he goes, who the heck is this?
There's no maid in Batman.
It's true.
It's not a big deal, but it was funny.
This is, I don't even know why I'm sharing this, but in college, one of my buddies and I, a good friend of ours who went to see the movie with us yesterday, we would play Ave Maria before we were going to go, party it up, go have a good time. And as soon as Ave Maria plays in the very beginning, he immediately popped up and he goes, a storm's coming. And I was like, oh yeah, baby. I was like ready to go. Like, this is going to be a ride. Buckle up. The score was so good. The score was so good.
Oh my God. Yes.
Not only the way they use Ave Maria throughout the whole movie and the theme in the score, but like the giant, like, whoa, it wasn't the Nolan version, but it was the big drums. When the car comes through the fire, he's screaming, there's no score, the score's down, and he's going, I got you. And then boom, it was done so well. Batman's theme throughout the whole movie. Who was the composer? I don't remember.
Michael.
Was it Michael Giacchino?
Giacchino, thank you. I was going to
Michael
totally
Giacchino's an
Thank you for
absolute master, and I love that. There's a handful of composers that are really do something special. I mean, Michael Giacchino did Star Trek, he did Rogue One, he did Up, he did WandaVision, he has done so many things as a composer, and he's just that good. He did Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, he is one of the ones, he's becoming one of the top ever, with a Danny Elfman, with a John Williams. And the score was so good. When a composer truly understands a movie and they understand when to put the music, when to not put the music, how to put the music,
Yes.
the movie was the whole way back. Riding back with a buddy of mine as we were driving back late last night. Every like 3 minutes, we're both just going, like we're just singing it, like because it just was that good. Any other thoughts?
Scores are, I feel like they are kind of underrated lately. Like, I feel like some movies don't really appreciate using scores and music as much as they should. And this was just a reminder that scores can really be powerful. And this is something like I'm guilty as well. Like, I don't really think about scores that often, and especially in our reviews, we probably don't mention it that often, but
I do.
Scores really can be powerful and make or break a movie. Like some of the most iconic movies that we all love and treasure, a large part of it could be because of the score so well. Whether you listen to it on repeat or only listen to it during the movie, like they can just be such an essential tool to help tell a story and craft out like a tone for what a movie is trying to set. And this he did a brilliant job in this with the music in this movie. And honestly, it might be my favorite Batman score. Like I honestly think back to other Batman movies, and as much as I love the Nolan movies, like I don't really recall the score as much as I probably will when it comes to this score in particular. So it's really great work, and I'm really happy that not only this composer but just everyone just totally was in the mindset that Matt Reeves was with crafting this movie, because you could just tell everyone came to play and knew what they were doing, and that's always like the best feeling.
Like people don't realize how a score impacts you until you got the TV on, you're getting something out of the fridge, and then all of a sudden you hear the like da na 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 na, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's Stranger Things. And then you pop up and you see a Stranger Things season 4 trailer, or Mandalorian with these insane sounds that are coming out, and then you think of The Dark Knight. I think has a really good score, and I think Batman gets a great theme in that, but it didn't feel iconic. To me, this has the potential to become an iconic score for Batman. And it was so good. And when you get a master like Michael Giacchino, you're going to get something that is that good. And it was just awesome. Everything about this movie was great. Matt Reeves proves that if you let people make their own movie, make their own story, and somebody who truly is passionate about it, that you're going to get a really great movie. It's funny that there is a big camp that really don't like this movie, because there is. And to be honest,
that big?
It feels that big to me. To be honest,
I think that's a Twitter thing. I just don't see it.
I see it all over. I see it all over. I mean, that's where you go to look at the people. I see tweets. I see TikToks. I'm seeing a lot of people who don't love it. And to me, it feels very similar to Last Jedi, where
really
very critically praised. But here's the difference. Big camp of who loves it. And then a very loud camp. Maybe it's just a loud camp, but a loud camp for this. I'm talking Batman right now. I think there's a massive amount of people who love it and they're praising it and they love it. And I think there's a pretty loud, smaller group that did not like it, and they really didn't like it. And the opposite was for The Last Jedi. Well, that's not true. I think it was actually pretty similar. But I've seen quite a few complaints. I've seen a lot of Twitter threads. I've seen a lot of TikToks of people either bashing this because they like The Dark Knight more, or just saying there's no story, blah, blah, blah. And I only really started to see it after Thursday, once common people got to see it. And I think it's great. It felt like our theater was loving it. Like there were scenes I kind of noticed people in front of us were kind of perking up, and they were like, oh my goodness, is that the Joker? Like things like that happen. I think this movie's going to make a ton of money. Warner Bros. Is going to be super happy, and they're going to say, please go. You got to get a director like Matt Reeves, who loves the story, who loves Batman, who is a fan, but is not too into this grand world. He's more focused on the story. I think that's where Zack Snyder struggled, was trying to make this grand universe instead of making a grounded story. And Matt Reeves, I hope you do a whole trilogy. I really hope he does. If we need to wait 4 years because he has a passion project in the middle, I would rather wait for a Matt Reeves movie than have a different director come on board. I truly would. I want to see what Matt Reeves would do with Robert Pattinson in a sequel. But any final things you want to say?
I truly appreciate Matt Reeves and everyone working on this movie. This movie really made me happy as a Batman fan. And honestly, it's probably one of the more fun movie-going experiences that I've had in a while. A large part of that is because I was able to go with a group of friends that I haven't seen in a while, including Alex here. And That's
Your
always
idea.
the best feeling in a theater, is just seeing it with friends and be able to talk about it in the parking lot for another hour afterwards. But they also just made a really great movie in general, not just a comic book movie, but just a really great detective
Mhm.
noir story that just happened to have comic book characters in it. So yeah, this movie is awesome. Please go check it out if you can. And yeah, I can't say for certain that this, champions Batman, but I just put it in my Letterbox account that it's probably like my second favorite Batman movie in my Batman rankings. So, and that's not a big deal. It's okay whether you think it's better than Dark Knight or not.
You're a
As long as it's a good.
chill. You only like Nolan. You only like Nolan.
I do like me some Nolan, but I also like Matt Reeves, and I like anyone else that makes good movies. And as long as you do that, at the end of the day, we're all going to be fine.
It's true. I don't know. To me, they're both S tier. They're both top tier. I don't
Which,
know what to
yeah,
say. I think
totally.
it's we don't need a goat. We can have many goats. We can have a farm
Yeah,
of
of
goats. You
course,
know what I mean? Like
of course.
it's great. You put it in a bracket and then we'll talk. But until then, I don't know. Go check us out on Letterbox. Both of us are on there, all linked in the description. Thank you to the patrons, Movie Meal merch. Go get some. What did you guys think of the Batman? Comment below. Let us know. I know this was a long video, but it has to be because we just love talking about it. So, guys, what'd you think?
Yeah.
Do all that stuff. And as always, thank you for watching, Mom.
See you guys.
Batman.